After I discovered that the name on the marriage contract was not mine, I immediately called my best friend to go out drinking and listening to music overnight.
Aren't you afraid your Crown Prince Yuan'an will come here to catch you?
Faced with my best friend's teasing, I, who was currently sipping my wine, did not panic at all. The Crown Prince is not my fiancé. We were never engaged in the first place. Some time ago, the Crown Prince brought back a woman from Jiangnan named Chao Zheng. She said she came from a very distant place. In her hometown, practiced monogamy, and men were strictly forbidden from having concubines. The first time Chao Zheng met me, she looked down her nose at me and said,
"I will only be the Crown Prince's primary wife. I will not share him with anyone else."
I looked at her swollen belly, utterly confused. Monogamy? But the Crown Prince and I have been betrothed since childhood, and our grand wedding ceremony is to be held in a month. How on earth was this supposed to work? The Crown Prince said,
Jing'er's pregnancy is unstable. Why don't you yield to her for now? Once she gives birth to the child, I will welcome you back.
I smiled. My father is the Grand Marshal who defends the state, controlling all the military forces in the land. No matter who becomes the Crown Prince, my position as the Crown Princess is set in stone. Chao Zheng caressed her belly, her face full of pride.
In your world, a mother's status rises with her child. Now that I carry the Crown Prince's flesh and blood, you should step aside and relinquish your position. In my hometown, we practice monogamy. Yuan'an promised me that he would only be husband and wife with me. Dear sister, while you are still young, you should find someone else to marry.
I stared at the woman before me in sheer disbelief. I recognized every single word she said, but put together, they make no sense to me. She didn't address him as His Royal Highness, but instead called him directly by his name, calling him Yuan, and over, and even telling me, the Crown Princess, to step aside for her and marry someone else. Before I could even react, Yuan'an gently helped her to sit down, then walked over to me with a look of doting helplessness.
Jing'er is very independent-minded. She has her own convictions and ideas. In time, you will understand that you and the others cannot compare to her. She is brilliant and full of talent. Unlike you, sheltered ladies raised in inner chambers, my heart belongs to her. Chaohua, you must understand that as the Crown Prince, some things will require you to make sacrifices. Jing'er's pregnancy is unstable right now. Why don't you yield to her for a while? Once she gives birth to the child, I will welcome you into the Eastern Palace.
Chao Zheng looked at me triumphantly, acting as if she were offering earnest advice.
We women must also be independent and not blindly depend solely on men. Even as women, we should have our own thoughts and our own lives.
I don't care what her ideas are. My idea is that I am the Crown Princess and the future Empress. What a joke. My father is the Grand Marshal of the state, who commands all the military forces of the realm. I am the Crown Princess, personally bestowed by imperial decree. We are to have our grand wedding in just 1 month, and now the Crown Prince says he wants to marry a commoner girl. The news of the Crown Prince bringing a woman back to the palace soon reached the Empress's ears. The next day, an attendant arrived to summon me to court. Today happened to be the day the noblewoman paid their respects to the Empress. Carefully shielded by the Crown Prince, Chao Zheng entered the grand hall without kneeling or bowing. She simply raised her head and said loudly,
Chao Zheng pays respects to Her Majesty the Empress.
The Empress's brow furrowed. The Crown Prince quickly explained,
Imperial Mother, Jing'er is not yet familiar with the palace rules, and she is also pregnant. Once I find someone to teach her properly, you will surely grow to like her in the future, Mother.
Beaming with joy, he led Chao Zheng forward.
Jing'er is exceptionally intelligent. She helped me solve many difficult problems in Jiangnan. We are deeply in love with each other. Now that she is pregnant, I wish to make her the Crown Princess.
With a swish, all the noblewomen turned their eyes toward me. Some had sympathy in their eyes, while others were looking for drama, as if waiting to see me make a fool of myself. The teacup in the Empress's hand fell to the ground. With a trembling voice, she asked,
Yuan'an, do you know what you are saying? The marriage between Miss Jiang and you has long been proclaimed to the world. It is not something you can call off just because you want to. She has committed no fault. If you go back on your word, what will the subjects of the empire think of you?
Chao Zheng spoke up proudly. Your Majesty, although Yuan'an is the Crown Prince, he also has his own thoughts. If he cannot even make his own decisions regarding his marriage, how can he rule the empire in the future? Wouldn't he just be a mediocre man who only knows how to hide behind his parents? The noblewoman gasped in shock. Someone who dared to speak to the Empress like this. There was probably not a second person in the world who would dare to do so. The Empress's face was as dark as water, yet Yuan'an looked completely in agreement, casting a look full of affection at Chao Zheng. Then he said resolutely,
Although I am betrothed to Chaohua, we are not married yet after all. Right now, I want to make my own decision for once. Mother, Zheng'er is already carrying your eldest imperial grandson. Does that mean you don't care about that either?
The empress closed her eyes and took a deep breath. After many years in the imperial harem, she had long since developed a heart of stone. She said sternly,
This palace will not agree to your breaking the engagement. The crown princess must be the legitimate daughter of the Jiang family.
Yuan'an took a step forward, looked at me standing beside the empress, and suddenly sneered.
Chaohua, don't think that just because you have imperial mother backing you up, you can sit on the throne of the crown princess. Aside from relying on your father's power, what else can you do? Let me tell you, don't even think about using your Jiang family's military power to threaten this prince. This empire, after all, belongs to the Yuan family, not the Jiang family. I am the future emperor, and your Jiang family can only bow and obey my command.
I sneered in my heart. Yuan'an must have gone mad. For a woman of unknown origin, he did not hesitate to fall out with the Jiang family, no matter what the empress thought. I could not allow him to insult and belittle the Jiang family. I stepped forward, knelt in the center of the hall, and said in a firm, resonant voice, Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and Miss Chao are deeply in love. Chaohua has no wish to be the one who destroys another's affection, nor am I willing to wrong myself. The Jiang family has an ancestral rule. A daughter of the Jiang family must never be a concubine. So, I implore your imperial majesty to grant the crown prince's request. Chaohua is willing to call off the engagement. This subject's daughter wishes your highness and Miss Chao conjugal love, and 100 children in succession. With that said, I untied the imperial bestowed phoenix jade pendant from my waist, which had been given for the engagement, and raised it above my head. The empress looked at me, her eyes flickering with uncertainty.
Chaohua.
Yuan'an stepped forward, snatched the jade pendant away.
Very well. Lady Jiang, you are so sensible. This prince will keep it in mind. Once Zheng'er gives birth to an imperial child, I will surely persuade her then to allow you to enter the Eastern Palace to serve us.
The noblewoman's gazes toward me all turned into pity. Disregarding the empress's presence, they began to whisper among themselves.
What is this woman's background to actually make His Highness the Crown Prince lose his mind? In all the world, where else could there be a more powerful wife's family than the Jiang family? Is the Crown Prince out of his mind? That woman is carrying the Crown Prince's child. No wonder she is so arrogant. No family status, no background, and of unknown origins. And she still wants to be the Crown Princess.
Because of some mysterious woman, the position of Crown Princess changed hands overnight. To me, this was an immense humiliation. Standing in the center of the grand hall, I gritted my teeth and kept my back straight. The noble consort from the side walked over, taking my hand affectionately.
Chaohua, come over to my side. Today my palace made some lychee cakes. They are very fresh. Accompany me to distract yourself.
Consort Shu on the other side was not to be outdone, pulling my other hand.
Oh dear, Yan'er also came to the palace today. He secretly told me long ago that he has admired you for a long time. Why not come sit in my palace? I heard he brought back many rare books from Jiangnan and some rare tribute tea. Our Yan'er is not like certain others, who only greedily lust after beauty. He is most upright and earnest, with his mind solely focused on court affairs.
The noble consort glanced over and pulled me even tighter.
It is still better to go to my palace first.
Yuan'an's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He broke the engagement with me, precisely because he assumed my reputation would be ruined. I would have no one to marry for the foreseeable future. He was just waiting for a few months to petition the emperor to take me into the Eastern Palace as a side consort. When that time comes, he would have his beauty, Chao Zheng, and my father, the Grand Marshal, would also be in his pocket. But he didn't expect that. Once our betrothal was called off, I would immediately become highly sought after. I said with a smile, Please don't be anxious, Your Highnesses. Why don't we go to Noble Consort's palace first for pastries, and then go to Consort Shu's palace for tea?
Very well.
Very well, let's do that.
Ignoring everything else, the noble consort and Consort Shu pulled me out of the hall, completely ignoring the dark-faced empress and crown prince in the main hall. I stayed in the two consorts' palaces for half a day, and by the time I left the imperial palace, it was already dusk. Just as I stepped onto the waiting carriage, someone grabbed my arm tightly. It was Crown Prince Yuan'an. He looked at me with a furious face.
Are you really this indiscreet? Just after calling off our betrothal, you couldn't wait to get close to other men. Chaohua, I told you, if you just wait a few more months, I will welcome you into the Eastern Palace. Why must you be in such a hurry?
I broke free from his grasp. Your Highness, I have nothing to do with you. How can we speak of entering entering the Eastern Palace. The daughters of the Jiang family do not become concubines. You have long known our family's ancestral rule. Please do not speak such nonsense again. He let out a mocking laugh.
A concubine, to be the crown prince's side consort, is still to be above thousands of people. What are you dissatisfied with? Do you think you can still find a husband of noble birth? I, Yuan'an, have already claimed you as my side consort. Who would dare to covet you? My brothers don't truly like you either. Stop dreaming. What they covet is your father's military power.
I stared at him intently. Then what about you, Your Highness? Is it not my family's power and influence that you covet? Yuan'an's face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Suddenly, a clear voice came from behind us.
Lady Jiang, my mother requested that I escort you back to your manor.
A man clad in full armor sat atop a horse. He dismounted nimbly and approached, exuding an imposing aura. It was noble consort Zhao's son, the third prince, Yuan Xuan. I had met him a few times. He had fought alongside my father on the battlefield on several occasions and was a man of great capability. Upon seeing the crown prince, he first bowed in greeting.
Imperial brother.
Yuan'an looked at him.
Third brother, when did you return to the capital?
Yuan Xuan replied with a smile.
I have just returned. I went to the palace just now to pay my respects to father and mother. The hour is late. Mother asked me to escort Lady Jiang back to her manor. Imperial brother, let us catch up another day. I shall escort Lady Jiang home first.
With a quick movement, I immediately hid behind the third prince. Third prince, let us depart quickly. The crown prince refused to let the matter rest and blocked our path.
Chaohua, I am telling you, and remain united with him in heart. Your only destiny is the Eastern Palace.
Yuan Xuan brushed his hand away and stood protectively in front of me. Yuan let out a cold sneer.
Third brother, you dare block me.
He then turned his gaze back to me.
No wonder you agreed to call off the engagement so readily. It turns out you had already found your next prospect. How could an improper woman like you ever deserve the position of crown princess?
Yuan Xuan brandished the long sword in his hand. The crown prince's horse let out a loud neigh after being startled, giving Yuan a good scare. His face flushed red with anger.
Third brother, how dare you?
Yuan Xuan helped me into the carriage, turned back, and replied,
Please forgive me. Brother, I was just switching hands to hold my sword. I didn't expect your prized steed to be so delicate as to be frightened by this.
His face was cold and proud, carrying the grim air of the battlefield, making it hard for anyone to look him in the eye. With that said, he leaped onto his horse.
Let's go.
Then, he and I rode away, in style. Upon returning to the manor, my father had already heard the news. He slammed his spear onto the ground in anger and roared.
Who does he think he is? To dare bully my daughter? If the engagement is off, so be it. Is my daughter going to have trouble finding a husband? With my army of 400,000, why should I take his nonsense? War, don't worry. Tell me who has caught your eye, and your father will.
I quickly covered my father's mouth and glanced at Yuan Xuan in sheer terror. This is a prince of the current dynasty. Father really dares to say anything out loud. Yuan Xuan sighed helplessly.
Marshal, please watch your words. If outsiders were to hear this, it might ruin your lifelong reputation.
My father's eyes lit up, and he patted his shoulder.
Your Highness, back then, old Zhao and I had quite a friendship. I respect you as a true man, so we can be considered on the same side. Why don't we? You marry Chaohua.
He did not treat the third prince like an outsider at all. His tone was full of closeness and appreciation. This single sentence made both the third prince and me blush furiously. The third prince quickly took a few steps back.
Grand Marshal, Lady Jiang, I shall take my leave and return to the palace now.
With that, he fled in a fluster. As soon as the third prince left, my father's face darkened and he returned to the room. He slammed his hand on the table.
My daughter actually suffered such a great humiliation. Chaohua. The marriage between the Jiang family and the royal family is set in stone. Since Yuan'an does not want you to be the crown princess, then we shall change who the crown prince is.
I knew why the emperor insisted that the future crown princess must come from the Jiang family. It was because of the 400,000 troops in my father's hands. Only when the Jiang family and the royal family became one could he sit securely on the dragon throne and balance all parties. Yuan'an was the emperor's legitimate son. With such a father-in-law, he could secure his position as the supreme ruler in the future. But no one had expected the crown prince to be so foolish as to take the initiative to call off his engagement with me, the crown princess. The next day, the emperor summoned my father and me to the palace. Inside the imperial study, the crown prince was kneeling on the floor, lodging a complaint.
Father, my third brother has been secretly associating with foreign ministers and is overly close with the Grand Marshal. He actually dared to snatch my consort.
Yuan Xuan looked entirely innocent.
Watch your words, Imperial brother. I followed the Grand Marshal into battle. Was I supposed to make an enemy of him? Yesterday, my mother saw that it was getting late and feared that Lady Jiang, being a lady, would be unsafe, so she had me escort her back to her manor. I dare not accept such groundless accusations. Besides, that day in the Empress's palace, your marriage with Lady Jiang was already called off. Besides, the Grand Marshal never agreed to betroth his daughter to you as a consort. So how is this stealing her? A desirable lady has many suitors. Just because you don't want her, does that mean others are forbidden from proposing?
Yuan'an looked at the emperor and said sharply,
Father, Junger is carrying my child. I cannot allow my own child to be born without status and be gossiped about by others. Besides, if a concubine's eldest son is born first, it will inevitably cause chaos in the family later on. That is why I must make Junger my primary consort. I am the crown prince. Having multiple wives and concubines is only natural. Just because she cannot be the primary wife, Jiang Chaohua wants to break the engagement. She is simply being willful.
The emperor looked at the crown prince and asked with a dark expression,
Nonsense. You and Chaohua have been betrothed since childhood. How can you break the agreement for a commoner girl? Are you certain you want to cancel the marriage with the Jiang family for her? You won't regret it.
The crown prince held his head high.
I will never regret it. Junger once said that if one cannot even make decisions regarding their own marriage, how can they make decisions for the people of the world in the future? Once Shanger gives birth to the child, I will just marry Chaohua into the palace then. I will make her a secondary consort. She would still be beneath only one person.
Father and I followed the attendant into the imperial study, catching the crown prince's words perfectly. Father feigned panic, and with a thud, he dropped to his knees.
Oh dear, Your Majesty, Your Highness. Yesterday, I already betrothed my daughter to the third prince.
As soon as father's words fell, the entire room fell completely silent. After a long pause, the emperor looked up at father.
What did you say? To whom did you betroth your daughter?
Father pointed at Yuan Xuan.
Betrothed her to the third prince.
With that said, he had eunuch Shin, who was by the emperor's side, go outside the hall to fetch a sword.
When the third prince proposed to me for my daughter's hand, he left this precious sword behind as a token of betrothal. I felt this was inappropriate. A marriage between children should never be decided privately without the permission of Your Majesty and Her Majesty. Therefore, I have specially entered the palace today to report this to Your Majesty.
My eyes widened in surprise. That precious sword was clearly won by my father in the past when he competed with the third prince in the military camp, and the prince had lost it to him. Now, in his words, it had actually become a betrothal token. Yuan Xuan looked at the sword, momentarily stunned, but reacted immediately. He knelt down, kowtowed, and said,
Father, I do indeed admire Lady Jiang. She is well educated, sensible, elegant, and intelligent. My mother also likes her very much. In the past, father betrothed Lady Jiang to my royal brother, so I did not dare to compete with him, and thus I have never met with her in private, only burying this affection deep in my heart. Yesterday, my royal brother broke the engagement with Lady Jiang in public. I truly could not bear to see a lady suffer and be heartbroken, which is why I was in a rush to propose. Please, father, forgive me for my sin of failing to report this beforehand.
The empress and the noble consort had also rushed here by this time. Hearing these words, the empress gritted her teeth and said,
Chaohua, how can marriage be treated as a joke? Yesterday, the crown prince only spoke in anger. How could you take it seriously?
I immediately chimed in, Your Majesty, the crown prince is the heir to the throne. His word is his bond. How could it be spoken in anger? Besides, all the titled ladies were present at the time. Everyone knows that the crown princess wished to marry Lady Chao as his primary consort, and that was why he called off our betrothal. As for the token of our betrothal, I have already returned it to him in public.
Right.
The noble consort quickly gave Yuan Xuan a meaningful look and stood behind him with a face full of smiles.
We were all in the hall yesterday, and I can bear witness to that.
After saying this, she gave the emperor a coquettish look.
Your Majesty, why are you being so partial? Is the crown prince your only son? Is Xuan or not your son as well?
Her underlying meaning was clear. All the emperor wanted was the support and loyalty of the Jiang family. As long as Jiang Chaohua married into the family and became a daughter-in-law of the imperial house, what did it matter which prince she married? The noble consort was the most favored lady in the imperial harem and was deeply favored by the emperor. Her words brought the emperor to his senses. He pondered for a moment and then nodded, saying,
When have I ever been partial? Oh, well, since Xuan loves her, and he and Lady Jiang make a fine match, I shall have the Ministry of Rights draft an imperial decree to bestow upon Lady Jiang the title of consort to the third prince and choose an auspicious date for the wedding.
The empress cried out in shock.
This must not be. Your Majesty, Chaohua was the crown prince's betrothed. How can a lady be betrothed to two brothers, one after the other.
Yuan'an's expression also darkened.
Father, please reconsider. My betrothal to Lady Jiang is known to the entire world. If she now becomes my brother's wife, this will surely invite gossip from the people of the empire.
The Empress and the Crown Prince were overbearing, behaving as though they would rather destroy her if they couldn't have her. Father clenched his fists and immediately reacted. He prostrated himself on the ground, his eyes rimmed with red.
Your Majesty, your servant has been your study companion since childhood and later managed military affairs for you. As you know, I have little luck with children and have only this single flesh and blood left by my late wife. I only wish to find my daughter a husband who will cherish and protect her. Whether I become the emperor's father-in-law or not, I do not care. Now, a month before the wedding, the Crown Prince cancels the engagement with her and even wants her to submit to others. The entire capital is laughing at her. Fortunately, the third prince holds her in high regard, saving our Jiang family from losing all face. By doing this, the Crown Prince, once word gets out, will he only be satisfied if my Chaohua suffers endless criticism?
After speaking, he kowtowed again.
I beg your Majesty to issue the decree for marriage immediately, to silence all public gossip. Your Highness, since you have decided to marry another woman, please let my Chaohua go. This old minister begs of you.
Seeing Father kowtow until his forehead turned red, a wave of sorrow rushed through my heart. I quickly crawled over on my knees and threw myself into Father's arms, my tears falling like broken strings of pearls. Choking with sobs, I said, "Please don't do this, Father. Your daughter simply won't marry. At worst, I will shave my head and become a nun, entering a nunnery to practice asceticism and never marry for the rest of my life. If that still won't do, I will leave the capital far behind. No matter what, I cannot let you suffer such grievances, nor can I disgrace the reputation of the Jiang family." The father and daughter embraced and wept before the imperial court. Their sorrowful appearance would move anyone who saw them to pity. Noble consort Zhao was also wiping her tears to one side, tugging at the emperor's sleeve as she sobbed.
Your Majesty, look at them. How pitiful this father and daughter of the Jiang family are. What the Crown Prince has done is truly going too far. If you do not decree this marriage, won't it break Marshal Jiang's heart? Won't it dishearten all the military generals in the world? Marshal Jiang commands an army of 400,000. If he harbors resentment, the consequences would be unthinkable.
Looking at the scene before him, the emperor's face grew darker and darker. How could he not understand the stakes involved? The Jiang family held massive military power, and father was a veteran general in the army, holding immense prestige. If he did not decree the marriage today and broke the Jiang family's heart, the throne itself would start to totter. As for the Crown Prince's actions today, they were truly too absurd. For the sake of a commoner woman, he did not hesitate to burn bridges with the Jiang family, showing none of the dignity befitting an heir to the throne. The emperor slammed his hand onto the imperial desk and said in a deep voice,
"Enough. This matter is settled. Guards, draft the imperial decree."
The attendant quickly bowed and complied. The emperor's voice resounded through the imperial study, each word powerful and resolute.
The third imperial son, Yuan Xuan, is of noble character, skilled in both scholarly and military arts, and has repeatedly won merits in battle. He is hereby created Prince of Yan and bestowed 100 taels of gold, 1,000 bolts of brocade, and a princely manor. Jiang Chaohua, the eldest daughter of the Jiang family, comes from a distinguished lineage, possesses a gentle and virtuous nature, and is refined and obedient. She is hereby created Princess Consort of Yan. The Ministry of Rites is ordered to select an auspicious day, prepare generous bridal gifts, and perform the grand wedding ceremony. Respect this.
"We thank your Majesty for your immense grace." Noble consort Zhao was the first to react, kowtowing in gratitude with a joyful smile on her face. Yuan Xuan also kowtowed alongside her, his voice carrying a joy he could not conceal.
Your son thanks, Imperial Father.
Father also pulled me to kowtow with him, the grief on his face instantly dispersing, replaced by a hint of relief. Only the Empress and the Crown Prince. Her face was deathly pale. They slumped on the ground and did not say a word. The Empress looked at the Emperor, her eyes filled with resentment and grievance, yet she dared not say another word. She knew the Emperor had already made his decision. Objecting further would be useless and would only invite the Emperor's displeasure. Crown Prince Yuan'an stared fixedly at Yuan Xuan and me, his eyes filled with malice and hatred. Noble consort Zhao was overjoyed. She quickly stepped forward, helped me up, and said with a smile,
Good child, come on, stop crying. This is a joyous occasion. Why are you crying? From now on, you are my daughter-in-law. I will protect you, and no one will dare bully you again. Let's go. Follow me to Jiangjia Palace to freshen. I have collected many treasures and jewelry in my palace. They are all made of the finest materials and are extremely exquisite. I was just waiting to save them for my daughter-in-law. Today, I will let you choose from them all.
As she spoke, she took my hand and turned to head toward Jiangjia Palace, completely ignoring the livid empress and crown prince beside us. Yuan Xuan followed behind us, his gaze resting on me with a hint of gentleness and a touch of apology.
Lady Jiang, regarding today's matter, you have been wrong.
I raised my eyes to look at him. I shook my head and said softly, "You speak too highly of it, third prince. If not for your highness today, I do not know how much more suffering I would have endured." Jiangjia Palace was decorated exquisitely and elegantly, exuding warmth everywhere. In stark contrast to the solemnity and gravity of Kunning Palace, noble consort Zhao pulled me to sit in front of the dressing table, personally wiped away my tears, and had the palace maids bring delicate pastries and tea. As she let me choose from the jewelry, she smiled and said,
Chaohua, don't worry. Xuan is a child I have watched grow up. He is mature and steady, responsible, and deeply loyal. He is by no means one of those ungrateful and fickle-minded men. Now that he is marrying you, he will surely treat you well and never let you suffer the slightest grievance.
She picked up a pure gold phoenix hairpin inlaid with red rubies, inserted it into my hair, looked in the bronze mirror, and nodded in satisfaction.
Look. This phoenix hairpin suits you. Could not be more perfect, bright and magnificent. You truly are the daughter of a military family.
I looked at myself in the bronze mirror. The phoenix hairpin in my hair shone brilliantly, yet my heart felt somewhat dazed. In just a single day, my identity had changed from crown princess to princess of Yan, from being about to marry into the eastern palace to marrying the third prince, Yuan Xuan. All these changes had come far too suddenly. Yuan Xuan stood to the side, quietly, with a gentle gaze, and said softly,
Miss Jiang, although today's matter was a measure of expediency, but my feelings for you are by no means insincere. I am willing to swear on my title as Prince of Yan that I will protect you for the rest of my life. Through all of our days, I will never abandon you. Should I break this oath, may heaven and earth destroy me.
His oath was spoken with absolute certainty, his gaze sincere, without the slightest hint of falsehood. I looked at him, my heart stirring slightly. Yuan Xuan was completely different from Yuan'an. He was calm, restrained, both brave and resourceful, as well as deeply loyal and righteous. When he fought alongside my father on the battlefield, he repeatedly won military honors and enjoyed great prestige in the army. He was a true man. Perhaps marrying him would be my best choice. I nodded gently and said softly, Your Highness, you speak too gravely. Chaohua trusts Your Highness. The news of the third prince being created a prince and me becoming the princess consort of Yan spread as if it had wings, reaching every corner of the capital overnight. The entire court was in an uproar. No one had expected that the eldest daughter of the Jiang family, whose engagement to the crown prince was cancelled just yesterday, would today be betrothed by the emperor to the third prince and even be titled princess consort of Yan. Furthermore, the third prince had risen to become Prince of Yan, making him the first among the princes to be granted a princedom. All of a sudden, the threshold of the Jiang manor was nearly worn down by visitors. Officials from all sides sent congratulatory gifts to curry favor with the Jiang family. Those who had previously shunned the Jiang family because of the crown prince's broken engagement now came one after another to show goodwill. As for Yuan Xuan's Yan princely manor, it also became the liveliest place in the capital. Invitations from various families flew into the Yan princely manor like sheets of paper, all of them wishing to form an alliance with the Prince of Yan. Ever since Yuan Xuan and I were betrothed by imperial decree, Crown Prince Yuan'an seemed to suddenly become a changed man. Restraining his former arrogance, he actually agreed to the empress's arrangements and began to meet with noble ladies in the palace for potential matches. Rumors spread among the palace staff that the crown prince had been severely lectured by the empress. If he remained obstinate and kept harboring thoughts about Chao Zheng, his position as crown prince might not be secure. The empress had spoken bluntly, noting that the emperor was already extremely displeased with him, while the third prince, Yuan Xuan, was highly regarded by the emperor and now had the backing of the Jiang family. If he still refused to mend his ways, the position of crown prince would change hands sooner or later. Perhaps taking the empress's words to heart, the crown prince began to curb his wild nature and look into candidates for his consort. Those noble ladies, though harboring complaints about the crown prince's actions the day before, knew that he was, after all, the heir apparent, the future emperor. Consequently, every family was willing to marry their daughter into the eastern palace. Only Chao Zheng, upon learning that I had been betrothed to Yuan Xuan and titles as the princess of Yan, threw tantrums in the eastern palace all day long, accusing the crown prince of being heartless and ungrateful and forgetting his original vows. The crown prince also gradually lost his patience with her. His past coddling vanished completely, leaving behind only perfunctoriness and annoyance. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, the Mid-Autumn Festival arrived. A banquet was hosted in the palace, inviting all civil and military officials along with their families. This was my first formal appearance at a palace banquet since being decreed the Princess of Yuan Xuan came to the Jiang Manor specifically to pick me up, and we rode in the same carriage toward the imperial palace. As the carriage reached the palace gates, Crown Prince Yuan'an was standing there, accompanying Xiao Zheng. Xiao Zheng, with her heavily pregnant belly, wore a magnificent brocade dress, her face carrying a touch of smugness. Seeing Yuan Xuan and me arriving together, she deliberately stepped forward and blocked our path. Yuan Xuan shielded me behind his back. He looked coldly at the crown prince.
Royal brother.
The crown prince looked at Yuan Xuan and then looked at me, her face dark and grim, but he did not say much. Xiao Zheng, caressing her belly, said in a sweet, coquettish voice,
Miss Jiang, now that you have become the Princess of Yan, we can be considered family from now on. In the future, while in the palace, we must support and look out for each other.
Her tone carried a hint of showing off, as if she were flaunting her status before me, boasting that she was carrying the crown prince's child and was the biological mother of the future eldest imperial grandson. I took a sip of tea near the carriage curtain, glanced at her indifferently. Her tone was calm. Miss Chao, you must be joking. It is better to wait until you have actually married into the eastern palaces and become the crown princess before we talk about supporting each other. Haven't you noticed that those entering the palace today are all unmarried young ladies from noble families? Looking at this grand display, it seems Her Majesty the Empress and His Highness the Crown Prince are selecting a crown princess. I paused, sweeping my gaze over her belly, and then over those noble young ladies, not far away. They all came from distinguished families and prominent clans. They were beautiful, well-educated, and well-mannered. Compared to Qiao Zheng, a commoner of unknown origin, they were worlds apart. I said, with a smile, these noble ladies all come from prestigious backgrounds and prominent families. As for Miss Chao's background, it naturally cannot compare. You had better quickly find a way to give birth to the child soon, so that His Highness the Crown Prince can marry you into the Eastern Palace as soon as possible. That is what truly matters. If someone else beats you to it and becomes the crown princess, then at that time, who will be the mistress of the eastern palaces might not be so certain. My words poked right at Xiao Zheng's sore spot. Her face instantly turned deathly pale. The hand caressing her belly also clenched slightly. Her eyes were filled with anger and panic. Looking at her like this, I felt no emotion at all. She had tormented me so badly back then, and now I was merely giving her a taste of her own medicine. Yuan Xuan looked at me, a hint of a smile flashing in his eyes. He reached out to wrap his arm around my waist and said softly,
Let's go. Don't waste your words on insignificant people. Imperial Mother is waiting for us inside.
I nodded and walked into the palace side by side with Yuan Xuan, leaving Qiao Zheng's angry glare behind us. The Mid-Autumn Imperial Banquet was held at the Chengru Pavilion in the Imperial Garden. Dozens of tables were set up in the pavilion, with the civil and military officials and their families seated on both sides. The Emperor and the Empress sat at the main seats, while noble consort Zhao sat beside the Emperor. Seeing Yuan Xuan and me enter, noble consort Zhao quickly waved at us and said with a smile,
Xuan Chaohua, come here quickly and sit beside me.
We walked forward to pay our respects to the Emperor, the Empress, and noble consort Zhao. The Emperor looked at Yuan Xuan and me, nodded, and showed a look of satisfaction.
Yuan Xuan, Chaohua. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival, so there is no need for such formalities. Please, take a seat.
We thanked the Emperor and sat in the seats beside noble consort Zhao. Delicate pastries, fruits, and fine wine were laid out on the table, all of which were the finest items from the palace. The Empress sat at the main seat, her expression still looking rather displeased. When her gaze swept over me, it carried a hint of coldness, but she did not say much. After all, I am now the Princess of Yan, backed by both the Jiang family and noble consort Zhao. She would not dare to act against me easily. At the banquet, the music of flutes and string instruments rose, and dancers began to dance gracefully. The civil and military officials toasted and exchanged drinks. The atmosphere seemed lively and bustling, but beneath the surface, undercurrents were surging. The Empress held the hands of several noble young ladies, chatting with them amiably. She asked after their well-being with an affectionate attitude. To anyone with an observant eye, It was obvious that the empress was sizing them up to choose a crown princess for the crown prince. Xiaozheng sat by the crown prince's side, watching the empress chat merrily with those noble ladies. She was extremely anxious in her heart, wanting to step forward several times to make her presence known before the empress, hoping to gain the empress's recognition of her status. But every time she took a step forward, the empress would deliberately turn her head away to speak with other noblewomen, ignoring her entirely. Having hit a wall several times, Xiaozheng's expression grew more and more unsightly, and the resentment and grievance in her eyes almost overflowed. She sat back down beside the crown prince, tugging at his sleeve, on the verge of tears.
Does Her Majesty dislike me that much? Why did she invite so many young ladies into the palace today, and yet treat me so coldly? Could she be planning to choose consort mothers for you, and let another woman become the crown princess?
The crown prince was speaking with the officials beside him. Being nagged by Xiaozheng like this, he was already impatient in his heart. Hearing this, his brow furrowed even tighter. Flinging her hand away, he said in a low, cold voice,
"Insolent nonsense. Her Majesty is merely speaking with the noble ladies of each family. Behave yourself, and do not make a scene here, disgracing the Eastern Palace."
With that said, the crown prince ignored her further and turned back to continue his conversation with the officials, leaving Xiaozheng ignored on the side. Xiaozheng looked at the crown prince's back, the grievance in her eyes instantly turning into resentment. She gritted her teeth and turned to look at me, sitting not far away, a flash of gloom passing through her eyes. I was speaking in a low voice with Yuan Xuan and did not notice Xiaozheng's gaze. Yuan Xuan placed a piece of my favorite sweet osmanthus cake on my plate and said softly,
Try it. This was newly made by the Imperial Kitchen. The taste is quite good.
I nodded, took a bite of the sweet osmanthus cake, which was sweet and soft, and indeed tasted extremely good. Just then, Xiaozheng suddenly stood up and walked out of the pavilion, her gaze still darting toward the crown prince from time to time, as if something was on her mind. My heart stirred slightly, and I looked outside the pavilion. I saw that at the end of the corridor, not far away, a corner of bright yellow clothing flashed by, accompanied by a beautiful woman. Judging by her attire, she seemed to be a maid from the Eastern Palace. I understood in my heart. Presumably, the crown prince could not endure his loneliness and used the banquet as a pretext to meet with the maid in private, while Xiaozheng had noticed something amiss and was going to look for him. I tugged at Yuan Xuan's sleeve. I whispered, "Look, there is a good show to watch." Yuan Xuan looked in the direction of my gaze and also saw that flash of bright yellow clothing. He raised an eyebrow and laughed softly.
My imperial brother's nature, after all, cannot be changed.
Xiaozheng followed quickly, all the way, and soon disappeared at the end of the corridor. Most of the people in the pavilion were still drinking and making merry, not noticing the movement here. Only a few people, just like Yuan Xuan and I, noticed something was amiss, all looking on with amused expressions, waiting to watch a good show play out. Not long after, a sharp, noisy argument came from the side hall at the end of the corridor, shattering the tranquility of the imperial garden.
Bastard! How dare you block me? Open the door right now. What an inappropriate couple. To fool around with someone else while his wife is pregnant. This is absolutely unruly.
The voice belonged to Xiaozheng. It was sharp and shrill, filled with endless rage. Everyone in the pavilion was stunned. They all stopped what they were doing and looked toward the direction of the voice, their faces filled with utter astonishment. The empress's face darkened instantly. He slammed his hand on the table and said sternly,
"Impudent. This is the inner court of the palace and a sacred imperial ground. How dare you run wild here? Shut up."
But Xiaozheng had completely lost her mind by now. How could she possibly listen to the empress? She kept shouting outside the door of the side hall, pounding on the door.
Open the door. Yuan'an, get out here. You promised me. You said you would only marry me in this lifetime and would never take another woman. Why did you break your word?
The eunuchs and maids at the entrance of the side hall were all kneeling on the ground, shivering in fear. They tried to stop Xiaozheng while pleading desperately with her.
Miss Chow, please calm your anger. The crown prince is handling important matters inside. Please stop making a scene. If the emperor is disturbed, it will not end well.
Important matters? What important business could there be? It is nothing but getting intimate with another woman.
Xiaozheng pushed away the maid in front of her and yelled angrily,
I must go in and see today. I want to see which woman dares to get close to my husband.
The crowd in the pavilion was buzzing with whispers, muttering to one another.
This Miss Chow is making far too much of a scene. She is, after all, carrying the crown prince's child, and is the birth mother of the future eldest imperial grandson. How can she behave with such utter disregard for propriety?
She has not even married into the Eastern Palace yet, and doesn't even have an official title, yet she dares to run wild in the palace like this. She truly doesn't know her place.
the crown prince is the same. He is the heir apparent after all. On such an important occasion as the Mid-Autumn Palace Feast, he actually met with a maid in private? This is truly a disgrace to decorum.
Listening to the crowd's discussions, the Empress's face turned from green to white, wishing she could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. She looked toward the crown prince's seat, but he was already nowhere to be seen, presumably hiding inside the side hall, not daring to come out. Just then, Qiao Zheng broke free from all the restraining eunuchs and maids, and pushed open the doors to the side hall. From inside the hall came a woman's startled cry and the crown prince's angry shout.
Impudent! How dare you be so bold? Get out!
You shameless woman! How dare you seduce my husband? Yuan'an, you promised to marry only me, and never marry another woman. Why did you lie to me?
The crowd outside heard everything loud and clear. What was there left to misunderstand? Using the feast as a cover, the crown prince had met privately with a maid of the Eastern Palace in the side hall, only to be caught red-handed by Qiao Zheng on the spot. Now, a massive scene was unfolding inside the side hall. Yuan Xuan wrapped his arm around my waist. I whispered,
Let's go have a look.
I nodded, and, together with Yuan Xuan, followed the crowd toward the side hall. Arriving at the entrance of the side hall, we saw a complete mess inside. Tables and chairs were overturned, and cups and plates lay shattered on the floor. The crown prince stood with his robes disheveled, his face flushed with anger, while Qiao Zheng, with disheveled hair and bloodshot eyes, was pointing at and berating a disheveled maid. The maid, trembling with fear, shrank behind the crown prince, with tears streaming down her face. Seeing everyone gather around, Qiao Zheng grew even more agitated. She forcefully dragged the maid out from behind the crown prince. The maid was already disheveled, and after being pulled like this by Qiao Zheng, she looked in even greater disarray. Drawing a collective gasp from the crowd, Qiao Zheng shoved the maid to the ground, pointed right at her nose, and yelled furiously,
Everyone, take a look. This is the woman who snuck around the crown prince, a lowly maid. Yet she dares to dream of becoming the crown princess. She is absolutely delusional and utterly shameless.
The maid knelt on the ground, weeping miserably, and kowtowed repeatedly.
Please spare my life, Miss Chow. I didn't do it on purpose. It was His Highness the Crown Prince who initiated it. I didn't dare to refuse him.
Seeing this, a noble lady could not help but shake her head. I whispered,
This Miss Chow is far too overbearing. The crown prince is the heir to the throne, so having multiple wives and concubines is only natural. Not to mention just taking a maid as a concubine. For her to throw a tantrum like this is, without leaving the crown prince any dignity, is truly going too far. Exactly. Today is the Mid-Autumn Palace Feast. The entire court and their families are present. With her throwing such a tantrum, not only has she disgraced the crown prince, but she has also disgraced the royal family. She has not even married into the Eastern Palace yet, and she already dares to control the crown prince like this. If she really becomes the crown princess, won't she turn the Eastern Palace completely upside down?
The Empress walked to the entrance of the side hall. Looking at the scene inside the hall, Su Rongrong trembled with rage. She pointed at Qiao Zheng and said sternly,
Qiao Zheng, you have gone too far. This palace has said long ago that someone as rude, unreasonable, and devoid of propriety as you is not worthy of marrying Yuan'an at all, nor are you worthy of being the crown princess. Your behavior today has utterly disgraced the royal family.
Seeing the Empress's anger and looking at the surrounding crowd, whispering and pointing, the crown prince felt a mix of rage and shame. He quickly took a cloak, draped it over the maid, shielded her behind him, glared coldly at Qiao Zheng, and said in a deep voice,
Enough. Have you made enough of a scene? She is merely a maid of the Eastern Palace. Today I was drunk, and she was attending to me. It was just a momentary lapse of control. Since it was my mistake, I will give her a title and let her enter the Eastern Palace as a concubine. Let this matter end here. You must not make any more trouble.
What did you say?
Qiao Zheng looked as if she had heard the biggest joke in the world. Her eyes turned red with anger. Pointing at the crown prince, her voice carried a hint of frenzy.
You actually want to take a palace maid as a concubine? By humiliating me like this, do you think I am not good enough for you? If you were marrying a lady from a noble family, it would be one thing. You wouldn't even let a lowly maidservant go. Where does that leave me? Where does that leave the child in my womb?
The maidservant hid behind the crown prince, tugging timidly at his sleeve, her eyes welling with tears.
Your Highness, Yunar is scared. Lady Chow is so angry. Will she make things difficult for Yunar? If not, Yunar had better not enter the Eastern Palace. Yunar would be content just being a maidservant to attend to your Highness. I dare not ask for a formal title.
This maidservant was named Yunar, and she was born with a delicate and pitiful appearance. Her fragile demeanor aroused the crown prince's pity even more. The crown prince patted her hand and said said in a deep voice.
With me here, no one dares touch you.
Seeing the crown prince protect Yuan in this manner, the anger in Xiao Zheng's heart burned even fiercer. She rushed forward, raised her hand, and slapped Yuan across the face.
You wench, how dare you play the victim? See if I don't teach you, a shameless creature, a lesson.
Impudent.
Seeing Xiao Zheng dare to strike Yuan, the crown prince was instantly furious. He pulled Yuan into his arms and glared coldly at Xiao Zheng.
How dare you hurt someone in my presence? Do you still have any respect for me as the crown prince?
Xiao Zheng looked at the crown prince, her eyes filled with disappointment and resentment.
Yuan'an, for the sake of a lowly maidservant, how dare you treat me this way? Have you forgotten the vows you made to me in Jiangnan? You said you would only love me for the rest of your life and only marry me. Why did you break your word?
Vows? They were just casual words.
The crown prince sneered. His tone carried a hint of mockery.
Xiao Zheng, don't think too highly of yourself. I am the crown prince, the future emperor. It is only natural for me to have many wives and concubines. If you cannot be virtuous and generous and accept my other women, then you are not worthy of being the crown princess, nor are you worthy of staying in the Eastern Palace.
Xiao Zheng was completely devastated by the crown prince's words. Her eyes turned bloodshot, and losing all reason, she raised her hand and slapped the crown prince across the face. With a loud slap, the sharp, crisp sound echoed harshly in the silent side hall. 5 bright red finger marks instantly appeared on the crown prince's face. Clearly visible. A dead silence fell over the room. Everyone was stunned, their eyes wide with shock, unable to believe what they were seeing. Xiao Zheng actually dared to strike the crown prince. A common woman of unknown origin dared to lay a hand on the crown prince of the dynasty. This was simply an act of insubordination, an outrageous rebellion. Holding his cheek, the crown prince looked at Xiao Zheng in disbelief, the rage in his eyes nearly burning her to ashes.
How insolent. You dare strike me. Have you lost your mind?
No longer able to suppress the fury in his heart, he violently shoved Xiao Zheng to the ground. Xiao Zheng was already pregnant and physically weak. Pushed so hard by the crown prince, she fell heavily onto the floor with a dull thud.
Insubordination, no respect for superiors, are offenses even a crown princess would be punished for. Not to mention, you haven't even married into the Eastern Palace yet, and hold no official title at all.
The crown prince's voice was bone-chillingly cold, filled with endless wrath.
Guards, take Xiao Zheng back to the Eastern Palaces, and lock her in the side courtyard. Without my permission, she is not to take a single step out. As for the crown princess, I shall choose someone else.
The nearby imperial guards quickly stepped forward, holding up Xiao Zheng, who was slumped on the ground, and prepared to drag her away. Just then, a noble lady suddenly let out a shriek.
She is bleeding, so much blood.
Everyone looked down, only to see Xiao Zheng clutching her stomach, her face deathly pale, and her lips purple. On the ground beneath her, a shocking glaring pool of blood had already begun to spread. It was a horrific sight, and the blood was still spreading continuously. Xiao Zheng had pushed the crown prince, only to be shoved to the ground by him in his fury. This had actually induced a miscarriage. The baby could not be saved. This was the crown prince's first child, and also the first eldest imperial grandson for the emperor and empress. Everyone had assumed this child would be born safely and become the future imperial heir apparent, but no one could have expected the child would be lost just like this. And on such a festive occasion as the mid-autumn palace banquet, the empress looked at the blood on the ground, then at Xiao Zheng's deathly pale face, her brow furrowed tightly. There was not a shred of pity in her eyes, only intense disgust. She said coldly,
"How utterly unlucky. Move Lady Chao to the side courtyard of the Eastern Palaces and find a maid servant to attend to her. Do not let her leave her courtyard anytime soon, lest she bring bad luck to the auspicious events in the palace."
The empress's words directly sealed Xiao Zheng's fate. Not only had she lost the child in her womb, but she had also completely lost the chance to become the crown princess. Without even an official title, she was merely referred to as Lady Chao. Confined to the side courtyard of the Eastern Palace, she was treated like an abandoned pawn. The crown prince looked at the bloodstains on the floor. A flash of astonishment crossed his eyes, but he quickly regained his cold indifference, as if the one he had lost was not his own child, but rather something insignificant. He looked down at Yuan, who was cowering behind him, and said softly,
"Don't worry, I am here."
With that said, he picked up Yuan, turned, and left the side hall, completely ignoring Xiao Zheng on the floor, as if he had never known her. Xiao Zheng had lost her child, was confined to the side courtyard of the Eastern Palace, and news of the crown prince selecting a new consort soon spread throughout the capital. It caused a great sensation, and there was no one who did not know of it. Meanwhile, Yuan, the maid favored by the crown prince, took this opportunity to be brought into the Eastern Palace by him, and was title bestowed as a lady of virtue, although she was merely a low-ranking concubine due to the crown prince's favor. favor. Her influence was unmatched for a time, a world of difference from the confined Chaozheng. Since the new crown princess and consorts had not yet entered the palace, the position of the primary consort in the Eastern Palace remained vacant. With Chaozheng confined to the side courtyard and forbidden from going out, the Eastern Palace became Yunar's domain. Yunar was originally a maid in the Eastern Palace. Having suddenly risen to high status, she began to lose her head, relying on the crown prince's favor. She lorded it over everyone in the Eastern Palace. She not only docked Chaozheng's food and clothing allowances, but also went to Chaozheng's side courtyard every few days to show off, deliberately mentioning how much the crown prince doted on her, provoking Chaozheng, who had lost her child and was confined. Chaozheng was already physically and mentally exhausted from losing her child. Being provoked daily by Yunar in this manner, the resentment and hatred in her heart grew deeper and deeper. She spent all day crying, screaming, and cursing in the side courtyard, behaving as if she had gone mad. The woman who once claimed to have grand aspirations now retained none of her former self, having become an abandoned, pitiful soul. The farce in the Eastern Palace became the laughingstock of the capital's citizens over tea and dinner. Everyone said the crown prince was a poor judge of character, that for a common woman of unknown origin, he had ruined his betrothal with the Jiang family and now ended up losing everything. Not only did he lose his child, but he had also become the laughingstock of the world. Meanwhile, Yuan Xuan and I enjoyed peaceful and quiet times. Although Yuan Xuan was involved as Prince of Yan, he remained diligent, attending court and handling state affairs daily. After court adjourned, he would come to the Jiang manor to see me, keep me company, and talk to me, take me out around the capital, show me all the beautiful sights of the city, showering me with every kind of care and meticulous consideration. Seeing Yuan Xuan treat me with such sincerity, my father was also highly pleased in his heart and held Yuan Xuan in increasingly high regard, often discussing military affairs with him in the study, imparting his years of military experience to him. Yuan Xuan also asked for advice with an open mind, and the two got along like father and son. In the blink of an eye, the day arrived for Yuan Xuan to present the betrothal gifts to the Jiang family. The Ministry of Rites, in accordance with the standards for an imperial prince's grand wedding, prepared a magnificent array of betrothal gifts: gold, silver, and jewels, silks and satins, antiques and calligraphy. He would have it all. Dozens of carrying chests in total, personally, escorted by officials from the Ministry of Rites, were carried into the Jiang manor in a grand, majestic procession. The line stretched from the entrance of the Jiang manor all the way to the end of the street, drawing the citizens of the capital to stop and watch. Yuan Xuan wore the bright yellow attire of the Prince of Yan, with a jade belt around his waist. His face was as handsome as carved jade, his eyes bright as stars, with her upright posture, bearing himself with dignified nobility. It was completely different from his usual military armor appearance, yet it still could not hide his steady and heroic spirit. Holding a betrothal gift himself, he walked into the Jiang manor, witnessed by a crowd of relatives and friends. He placed a pair of live wild geese and a pair of mutton-fat jade ruyi scepters, specially bestowed by the emperor and consort Zhao, into my hands. His gaze was tender, and his voice was low and sincere.
A gentle and graceful lady is a fitting mate for a gentleman. Gold and jade serve as the betrothal gifts, and metal and stone bind our alliance. Chaohua. In this life and for all eternity, I will protect you from all harm. Through this lifetime, I will never abandon you.
Looking at the warmth and sincerity in his eyes, my heart was filled with warmth. I reached out to accept the wild geese and the jade ruyi, and said softly, "May we always understand each other, year after year." Then, Yuan Xuan took a pair of jade pendants carved with a dragon and phoenix, and personally tied them to my waist. I also took another pair of jade pendants, and tied them to his waist, tied with red silk strings, and interlocking with each other. The jade pendants symbolized the eternal union of our hearts, never to be parted. The ritual official chanted in a loud voice, announcing the completion of the betrothal ceremony. The onlookers all clapped and cheered, offering their blessings one after another. The minister of the Ministry of Rites stepped forward and said with a smile,
"Prince Yan and Princess Yan are a match made in heaven. This is a union of the highest fortune. I have selected an auspicious date, which is 3 months from now. At that time, when the two families unite in marriage and the vows are sworn in the hall, you will be bound as life partners forever, blessed with a century of harmony."
Everyone cheered once more, and the Jiang manor was filled with a festive joy, resounding with non-stop laughter. Just then, a staggering figure suddenly barged in. The crown prince robes he wore were rumpled and disheveled. His hair was disheveled, and he reeked of alcohol. It was none other than Crown Prince Yuan'an. He had clearly had a lot to drink. His eyes were clouded, and his face was flushed red. Pushing aside the officials from the Ministry of Rites who stood in his way, he walked straight toward Yuan Xuan and me. He violently shoved Yuan Xuan aside and reached out, grabbing my wrist tightly. His grip was incredibly strong, squeezing my wrist so hard that it hurt. I couldn't help but furrow my brows. Seeing this, Yuan Xuan's face darkened and he stepped forward to pull him away, only to be barked at by the Crown Prince.
Don't come over here.
With bloodshot eyes, the Crown Prince stared at me intently, his gaze filled with regret and obsession, his voice raspy.
Chaohua, I regret it. I still want to marry you as my crown princess. Would you be willing? As long as you nod your head, I will return to the palace immediately to beg father and mother to call off your marriage with my third brother. Let us start anew. What do you say?
His words were like a stone thrown into a calm lake. The laughter and joy inside the Jiang residence instantly vanished. Everyone was stunned, staring at the Crown Prince with wide eyes, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. No one expected that on the auspicious day of Yuan Xuan presenting his betrothal gifts to the Jiang family, the Crown Prince would barge in to make a scene, even demanding that I call off my marriage with Yuan Xuan to marry him instead. The Crown Prince looked at me, the regret in his eyes growing deeper, his voice carrying a hint of pleading.
Chaohua, only now do I realize that I was wrong. I was truly wrong. The things Chao Zheng said every day was all utter nonsense. What all people are equal. What one couple for a lifetime. It was all a lie. I am the crown prince of a nation. How could I let myself be controlled by a woman like her? Mad and unstable, unreasonable and tyrannical. How could she ever be a helpful wife to me? How could she be the crown princess and the future empress?
He took my hand, pleading bitterly.
Only a noble lady like you, a daughter of a military family, refined and educated, wise and courageous, is worthy of standing by my side, and worthy of being my crown princess and the future empress. Chaohua, I know I wronged you in the past. I shouldn't have, for a woman like Chao Zheng, humiliated you and broken our engagement. Just forgive me this once, all right? Let us start anew. I will definitely treat you well and never let you suffer the slightest grievance again.
The guests in the hall instantly fell into chaos, whispering to one another, buzzing with discussion. No one had ever witnessed such a scene before. On the joyous day of Prince Yan presenting his betrothal gifts, the current crown prince had actually broken in to cause a scene. This was simply unheard of and utterly absurd. Looking at the obsession and regret in the Crown Prince's eyes, I felt absolutely nothing in my heart, and even found it quite laughable. Back then, he was the one who broke the engagement with his own words, humiliating me in public, saying that apart from relying on my father's power, I was utterly useless, and that I was unworthy of being the Crown Princess. Now, seeing that I was to marry Yuan Xuan, and that Yuan Xuan was highly regarded by the emperor, and had gained the support of the Jiang family, showing a highly promising future, he regretted his decision, and wanted to win me back. How could things be so easy in this world? I struggled hard, trying to break free from his grip, and said angrily, "Your Highness, what nonsense are you talking about? My marriage to Prince Yan was personally bestowed by the emperor and announced to the world. The grand wedding ceremony will be held in 3 months. How can it be called off just like that? You are also about to marry a new crown princess. By title and status, I am already Prince Yan's consort. You and I are brother and sister-in-law. Please show some self-respect and never say such things again. If word gets out, won't it ruin me and destroy my reputation?"
Brother and sister-in-law. What brother and sister-in-law?
The Crown Prince sneered, his eyes growing more and more obsessive.
As long as you cancel your betrothal to my third brother and marry me instead, you will still be my crown princess. Where would this brother and sister-in-law nonsense come from? Chaohua, stop being so obstinate. My third brother is merely a prince, while I am the crown prince, the future emperor. Only by marrying me can you become the empress and the most noble woman in the world. If you follow my third brother, you will only ever be a prince's consort. What is so good about that?
Seeing that the Crown Prince was still stubborn and still pestering me, Yuan Xuan's face darkened completely. He took a step forward, grabbed the Crown Prince's arm tightly, exerted his strength, and flung him away. Yuan Xuan was a military general who spent years fighting on the battlefield, possessed immense strength. The Crown Prince, already heavily intoxicated and unsteady on his feet, was flung back by him, stumbling several steps backward and nearly falling over. Yuan Xuan shielded me behind him, looking at the Crown Prince with a cold glare, his voice carrying a hint of anger.
Brother, what is the meaning of this? The imperial decree has been issued, and my marriage to Chaohua is set. The betrothal gifts have been delivered, and the auspicious date has been chosen. The entire world knows of this. How dare you make such a scene today and disrupt things so publicly? Do you still have any respect for imperial father, the imperial laws, or our brotherly bond?
Brotherly bond.
Clutching his throbbing arm, the Crown Prince sneered at Yuan Xuan, his eyes filled with jealousy and resentment.
Yuan Xuan, Stop putting on an act. Do you really think you are marrying Chaohua because you truly love her? You only care about the Jiang family behind her and the 400,000 troops they command. You are just like me. Both of us are after the Jiang family's power.
He turned to look at me, his voice suddenly turning dark and laced with malice.
Chaohua, do you really believe he treats you with sincerity? You are merely a pawn for him to seize the throne. Furthermore, you were betrothed to me first. Even if he marries you, he is only taking my leftovers. Can he truly not care about that deep down?
These words, like a sharp dagger, stabbed deeply into my heart and completely ignited my rage. The crown prince was deliberately ruining my reputation. He wants to drive me to my death, wanting to ruin my marriage with Yuan Xuan. As the legitimate daughter of the Jiang family since childhood, I have always kept myself pure and upright. Although I was betrothed to the crown prince, I have never once overstepped the bounds of propriety. Yet now, he makes such baseless accusations with his bare teeth, defiling my chastity. If this can be tolerated, what cannot? Unable to endure it any longer, I raised my hand and threw a slap, striking the crown prince right across the face. Smack! The sound was crisp and loud. Instantly, the Jiang manor fell dead silent. My eyes were filled with rage, and my voice was icy cold. Your Highness, cease your nonsense. Do not slander me. I, Jiang Chaohua, have kept myself pure since childhood. Although we had a betrothal, I have never once overstepped the bounds of propriety. By slandering me like this today, are you trying to force me to my death? I looked at him, rage and despair intertwining in my heart. I turned and drew a long sword from the waist of a nearby guard, pressing the tip of the blade against my own neck. As the cold blade pressed against my skin, a bone-chilling coldness washed over me. I looked at the crown prince, my voice carrying a hint of absolute resolve. Your Highness has pushed me time and again. You were the one who broke off the engagement, yet now you pester me relentlessly, and you are the one trying to ruin my reputation. You would rather ruin my reputation and drive me to my death than see me marry someone else. Very well, I shall let you see. I know myself to be pure, acting uprightly and honorably, never having overstepped any bounds with you. Today, I shall prove my innocence with my death. Even if you are the crown prince, the heir to the throne, you cannot make such baseless accusations to ruin a woman's innocence and force an innocent girl to her death. If I die today, it will be because you forced me to. Everyone in the world will see your true colors. They will see just what kind of crown prince you are, how narrow-minded and utterly unreasonable. With that said, I gripped the long sword tightly, raised it high, and was about to slash it across my own neck.
Chaohua, don't.
Seeing this, Yuan Xuan's pupils contracted sharply. He lunged forward, reached out, and firmly grabbed the sharp blade with his bare hand, trying to stop me. The cold, sharp blade cut deep into his palm, and fresh blood instantly gushed out, staining the blade red, as well as his bright yellow imperial prince's robes. That piercing red color, watching it made my heart tighten, and the long sword in my hand also stopped.
Chaohua, why would you do this?
Yuan Xuan looked at me, his eyes filled with deep anguish and anxiety, his voice trembling slightly.
No matter what royal brother says, I believe you. I have never once doubted your innocence. Do you not trust me? For the sake of someone like him, is it really worth throwing away your own life?
His palm was still bleeding profusely, and fresh blood dripped down the blade onto the ground, splattering into shocking, red blossoms. Looking at the wound on his palm, a wave of bitterness washed over my heart, and tears instantly welled up in my eyes. The long sword, in my hand, fell to the ground with a loud clang. Yuan Xuan then turned his head to look at the crown prince, all the warmth in his eyes completely vanishing, leaving only a cold, burning anger. His voice carried a trace of ruthless resolve.
Although royal brother and I were born of different mothers, we are still flesh and blood, brothers of the same father. I have always respected you as the crown prince and deferred to you in everything. Yet today you threaten me, your royal brother, in this manner. Threaten my wife, slander her chastity, and seek to drive her to her death. I can no longer tolerate this. Today's matter absolutely cannot be simply brushed aside. You will come with me to the palace. We shall sort this out before Imperial Father and let him seek justice for Chaohua and clear her name.
Everyone in the Jiang residence was already kneeling on the ground, shivering with fear, not daring to look up. Father happened to emerge from the study holding the marriage certificate, seeing the scene before him, and then seeing Yuan Xuan's bleeding hand and my tear-stained face. He was instantly consumed with rage. He slammed the marriage certificate onto the ground, pointed at the crown prince, and bellowed in anger.
Yuan'an, you have gone too far. How dare you on my Jiang family's auspicious day barge in to disrupt the occasion, slander my daughter's chastity, and drive her to prove her innocence with her life. For you to humiliate my Jiang family like this is simply intolerable.
As father spoke, he drew the sword from his waist in one swift motion and said furiously,
I, Jiang, have spent my entire life on the battlefield, fighting campaigns across the land for the great Yuan Empire, and have never suffered such humiliation. Since you have bullied my daughter like this today, my Jiang family cannot coexist with you. I will go to the palace right now to report this to the emperor, resign from my post, and return to my hometown. I will take my Chaohua back to our ancestral home. This Grand Marshal's post I can well do without.
The news that the Crown Prince had driven the Grand Marshal's legitimate daughter to seek death to prove her innocence, and that Prince Yan's hand had been cut by a sword while protecting his consort, seemed to grow wings, spreading throughout the entire capital overnight. Throughout the court and the commonalty, everyone was deeply shaken. Everyone scoffed at the Crown Prince's actions, accusing him of being narrow-minded and utterly unreasonable for his own selfish desires. He did not hesitate to slander an innocent lady's virtue, forcing her to prove her innocence with death. He was truly unfit to be the heir to the throne. At the morning court session the next day, my father, clad in full military armor and holding his military tally, knelt in the center of the grand hall. His eyes were red with emotion, and his voice was filled with grief.
Your Majesty, I beg your Majesty to make a sacred judgment. Yesterday, when Prince Yan presented betrothal gifts to my daughter, it was supposed to be a day of great joy. Yet, His Highness the Crown Prince barged in to cause trouble, and even slandered my daughter's virtue, forcing her to prove her innocence with death. To protect my daughter, Prince Yan had his hand sliced open by a sword, nearly suffering permanent, crippling damage. My daughter is my very life. How can I allow her to suffer such humiliation?
Father held the military tally high above his head and said in a deep, solemn voice,
This position of Grand Marshal I have held for decades, devoting my heart and soul to the territory of Dayuan until my dying breath. But now, over a single marriage, the Crown Prince has formed a grudge against my family and even tried to force my daughter to her death. This Grand Marshal, I might as well not be. I beg your Majesty's gracious permission to resign my post and return to my village, taking my daughter back to our old home. From now on, I will not meddle in court affairs and only seek a peaceful and stable life.
Yuan Xuan was also in the grand hall. He knelt down and said,
Father, the Crown Prince is my elder brother, yet he so slanderously defiled the chastity of my betrothed and me. Does he still have any respect for Imperial Father, or any regard for brotherly affection? Please, Imperial Father, rule with justice.
The Minister of Rights sighed.
Your Majesty, now it has spread all over the capital. What should we do?
With a dark expression, the Emperor threw a table full of memorials at the Crown Prince.
Take these memorials, go kneel outside the main hall, and read every single word of them. Then, write a formal confession of your guilt. The Crown Prince has acted without restraint, behaving with reckless abandon. From this day forward, he is confined to the Eastern Palace and is not to leave without imperial decree.
The Crown Prince's confinement was a major event. When the Empress heard of it, she was utterly infuriated.
What an impressive Jiang Chaohua to actually cause my son to be confined. Does she really think all is well just because she became a prince's consort? A mere prince of Yan dares to contend with the Crown Prince? Does he think he is so formidable just because his father-in-law is the Grand Marshal? Even if he marries into the Jiang family, he still has to call me Imperial Mother. Once she marries in, I will make sure her life is miserable.
When the noble consort heard this, she couldn't help but laugh. She had someone leak the remarks. Both father and the third prince fell silent. They deliberated in the study for the entire night. Within less than half a month, prefectures began submitting memorials to the throne, impeaching the Crown Prince for his tour of Jiangnan on behalf of the emperor, accusing him of extravagant waste, accepting bribes, and selling official posts. Corruption is the emperor's ultimate red line. It concerns the very foundation of the nation. As the heir apparent, the Crown Prince actually took the lead in such evil deeds. It absolutely could not be tolerated. The evidence of the Crown Prince accepting bribes was also presented to the emperor. Even the exact amounts of silver when they were received and which official positions were sold were all listed one by one. The emperor was furious. How could the foundation of the empire be handed over to such a person? The decree to depose the Crown Prince was issued very quickly. Crown Prince Yuan'an was deemed deficient in virtue, unfilial, and unfriendly to his brothers, unfit to offer sacrifices to the ancestral temple or to rule over the realm. Crown Prince Yuan'an was demoted to a commoner and exiled to Qingzhou. With the Crown Prince deposed, the Empress wept and made scenes constantly. The Emperor also reprimanded her for failing to raise him properly, stripped her of her authority to manage the imperial harem, and put put noble consort Zhao in charge of all harem affairs. The empress and the deposed crown prince had lost all their power and could no longer stir up any trouble. When Yuan'an was banished to Qingzhou, the only people accompanying him were his two concubines, Xiaozheng and Yuner. Xiaozheng lost her mind on the way to exile, constantly muttering,
I came to be the crown princess. It shouldn't be like this. How can I be following a commoner?
Looking at her in this state, Yuan'an's heart was filled with resentment and anger.
Back when we were in Jiangnian, it was you who egged me on to commit those misdeeds. If it weren't for your advice, I am the legitimate son of the first empress. How could imperial father have deposed me? You woman, you ruined me, yet you still dare to speak nonsense.
In a fit of rage, Yuan locked Chao Zheng inside the carriage. Ultimately, Chao Zheng died of grief and misery inside the carriage. Yuner, on her horse, watched Chao Zheng's end from afar, frightened out of her wits. By the time she snapped out of it, she was also somewhat delirious, muttering only,
I will soon be the crown prince's side consort. Why haven't you come to pay your respects to me?
As things stand now, what becomes of Yuan'an is no longer of concern to anyone. The empress fell gravely ill from excessive worry and passed away shortly after. Our wedding was postponed for several months. On our original wedding date, Yuan Xuan was invested as the crown prince. A grand and magnificent wedding was held in the capital. On the day of my wedding, father said to Yuan Xuan,
The Jiang family is fiercely loyal to His Majesty and the Crown Prince, and will serve you with absolute devotion. I have only one daughter, Chaohua. As long as she is well, there is nothing I would not offer.
I smiled slightly. Indeed, my father is the Grand Marshal of the state, controlling all the military forces under heaven. He is loyal, but also protective, bold yet meticulous. Cautioning the Crown Prince in such a manner on his daughter's wedding day is exactly something he would do.
Yuan Xuan bowed deeply. I, Yuan Xuan, swear to protect Chaohua for the rest of her life. Please rest assured, father-in-law.
I smiled slightly beneath my red bridal veil. No matter what, the crown princess is still a daughter of the Jiang family, the future empress of the inner palace, and the phoenix above tens of thousands.